You know, you hear stories and legends from practically every single ancient culture on the planet, and they all seem to have one thing in common: giants. But what if they were more than just myths? What if a race of absolutely colossal humans once walked among us?
So that's the big question we're diving into today. We're going to try and look past all the folklore and mythology and dig into the actual historical and archaeological record for some tangible clues.
And to do that, we're going to count down 5 of the most compelling pieces of evidence out there. We'll start with some really ancient traces and work our way all the way up to the modern day. Let's see what the record has to say.
All right, let's kick things off by going way, way back in time. We're looking at a pretty strange geological anomaly and a legend that just might, have some truth to it. Starting our countdown at number 5, we have something called Goliath's footprint down in Mpuluzi, South Africa. Now, this isn't just a print in some mud or sand that hardened over time. No, this thing is a perfectly formed, human-like footprint that's literally embedded in solid granite. And the scale of it is well, it's staggering. This print measures about 4 feet long from heel to toe. To give you some perspective, that's nearly as tall as an average 10-year-old kid. Just imagine a foot that big. So what does a 4-foot-long foot actually imply? Well, if we go by normal human proportions, you'd be looking at a creature standing somewhere around 27 feet tall. That's almost 5 times the height of a normal person. Now, of course, most geologists will tell you this is a classic case of pareidolia, where our brains are wired to see patterns, like a face on the moon. They say it's just millions of years of natural erosion.
Okay, so from a single footprint, let's jump over to our 4th piece of evidence. This takes us from one print to a whole bunch of skeletons. Back in 1911, some miners digging for guano in Lovelock Cave, Nevada, stumbled onto something that seemed to bring an old local legend to life. See, the local Paiute tribe has this incredible oral history that's been passed down for generations. It talks all about a rival tribe they called the Siteka. And according to the legends, these weren't just other people, they were red-haired, cannibalistic giants.
And what the miners said they found? Well, it was almost too perfect. They described unearthing multiple, massive human skeletons, some supposedly between 8 and 10 feet tall. But here's the kicker. They said the skeletons still had tufts of red hair attached, which lines up exactly with what the Paiute legends say about the Siteka. Now, the skeptical view here is important. None of this was professionally preserved, and the actual bones have, conveniently or not, been lost to time. Okay, so now we're going to move out of ancient legends and into the age of, modern science. This is where the evidence starts getting documented in academic journals, and then, according to some folks, it gets systematically erased. Coming in at number 3, we've got the Giant of Castelnau. So in 1890, a French anthropologist, Georges Vacher de Lapouge, found these bone fragments that he described as belonging to a gigantic human. I mean, listen to his own words there. Extraordinary volume, superhuman bone density. He's saying these bones were on another level entirely. And this wasn't just some wild guess. Based on those fragments, de Lapouge actually published a study in a peer-reviewed journal. His scientific estimate for this individual's height? About 11 feet 6 inches. This was being presented as a scientifically documented colossus. It is important to remember, though, just like with Lovelock Cave, these specific bone fragments have also been lost, so nobody can re-examine them today. And then this leads us straight into number 2, which is maybe the most explosive claim on this entire list, the Smithsonian cover-up theory. The idea here is that evidence like the Giant of Castelnau wasn't just lost by accident. It was actively suppressed, maybe even destroyed, by one of the world's most famous museums. So here's where the theory comes from. If you go back and look at newspapers from the late 1800s and early 1900s, you find hundreds of articles from all over North America reporting the discovery of enormous skeletons in ancient burial mounds. And a lot of these articles specifically mention the Smithsonian, saying the bones were being sent there for study. And then, nothing. The stories just stop. Now, for their part, the Smithsonian has always denied this, saying the stories were just a mix of hoaxes and people misidentifying mastodon bones, which were pretty common finds back then. All right, it's time for our number 1 spot. And for this one, we're leaving the history books and academic journals behind and dropping right into a 21st century war zone. This is the story of the Kandahar giant, The account, which comes from a military whistleblower, claims that a U.S. Special Forces team on patrol in Afghanistan back in 2002 had a violent run-in with something straight out of mythology.
The description of this thing is just wild. It was supposedly a humanoid creature, about 13 feet tall, with fiery red hair and beard. And it wasn't carrying a gun, it was wielding a giant pike-like spear. It apparently came out of a remote cave that the soldiers were investigating.
And what happened next was apparently fast and incredibly violent. The story goes that the giant charged the squad, impaled one of the soldiers, killing him instantly. The rest of the team then just opened up with everything they had and finally took it down. And then, according to the whistleblower, a helicopter showed up, picked up the body, and flew it away to some unknown classified location, leaving absolutely no proof behind. Wow. Okay, so let's just take a breath for a second. We've gone from a single footprint in ancient granite all the way to a supposed firefight in modern Afghanistan. We've looked at bones, legends, and some pretty serious accusations of a cover-up. So let's just quickly run through the trail of evidence one more time. We started with an impossibly large footprint in South Africa. Then we had the red-haired skeletons of Lovelock Cave. After that, a scientifically documented 11-foot-plus giant in France. Then the theory of a massive cover-up based on hundreds of newspaper reports that just vanished. And finally, a modern military encounter with a 13-foot humanoid in Afghanistan. Every single one of these pieces of evidence just seems to open up a dozen new questions. Are these just stories of erosion, misidentification, and maybe some elaborate hoaxes? Or are they breadcrumbs, leading us to a forgotten chapter of human history, a chapter that suggests we once shared this planet with giants? In the end, the verdict is yours.